All right, everybody. This is now showing with Mike and Wayne. I am Mike, and that is Wayne.
Ta-da!
We are here for episode 25, and we're kind of just counting down to the holidays here. We'll have a great episode on Christmas for you guys, but right now, for next week, we are going to talk about the ultimate Christmas films, in our opinion. Obviously, we will be leaving Die Hard off of this discussion because we talked about it last week, so no one freak out that we don't talk about Die Hard. Go listen to last week's episode. We will both probably be watching it around Christmas or Christmas Eve, so don't freak out. But I wanted to kind of keep it more...
No discussion or debates about it. Number one with a bullet, Die Hard, Christmas movie, top of the list.
But this week I wanted to talk about what I consider to be the ultimate Christmas movies, movies surrounded by Christmas that we all kind of think of. And we're going to just kind of get into it right now. I'm going to start off with my favorite, the one I love to watch every Christmas, and that is Scrooged, starring the great Bill Murray. We've already had a discussion about him thoroughly. This movie...
Treasure.
National treasure, exactly. This movie came out in 1988. It is directed by Richard Donner, who was the director of Lethal Weapon, which we talked about last week. Written by Mitch Glazer, who's a good friend of Bill Murray, and also written by Michael O'Donoghue. It stars, obviously, Bill Murray, Karen Allen. John Forsythe plays basically the Jacob Marley of the movie. It is based on Christmas Carol, but it's a very dark version, very funny version. Bobcat Goldthwait is in it, Carol Kane, Robert Mitchum, Michael J. Pollard, Alfred Woodard. It's got other great supporting characters in it. Music by Danny Elfman. That was right around the time that he was kind of thrust into doing scores, so he got to kind of do a lot because he hit the scene. I think it was Beetlejuice might have been his first one. Or no, I think Pee-wee was like his first one. And then he just kind of became a huge hit. So we get a huge, great score from him. Great performance by Bill Murray. I mean, it's his movie. You know, he plays the Scrooge part of this. He hates Christmas. He doesn't really like anybody, even his own family. He's mean to his brother. He's mean to his assistant. He's mean to his fellow employees. He's got this big idea that this Christmas special should be like more scary than cheerful. It's like Lee Majors, like Saving Christmas or something like that, and then all this just explosions and destruction, and so and it goes through the typical Christmas Carol story of he's visited by his old boss, played by John Forsythe, and he then is visited by three ghosts. Carol Kane plays the one ghost, and then you have the other gentleman who David Johansen, who everybody knows as the he's a singer, comedian, actor, plays a punk singer for the longest time. He's hilarious. He plays the cab driver that picks him up, and just it's hilarious all the way through. And it's a kind of a touching story of a man who's lost any kind of like sense of family and relationships with people, and kind of his way back to that. Also, being very darkly funny. Carol Kane is hilarious as the angel or the ghost of Christmas present. Kicks him in the balls quite a few times. And you could tell she just had a lot of fun with this role. It's always been one of my favorite Christmas movies, or my favorite, I should say. It's always been my favorite Christmas movie because it's so different. It's not necessarily as cheery, but then it does have a big, wonderful singing moment at the end. Not unlike another movie we will talk about in the next couple picks here. And I think that really kind of brings it together. And it's a really fun Christmas movie. Wayne, what are your thoughts on this movie?
It's definitely one of my favorite adaptations of A Christmas Carol. I mean, I've got a pick later on that we're going to talk about that, follows Christmas Carol guidelines and whatnot, but just, totally different. And it's fun. This 1998 gem. It's nice to just be able to take a story and then see it with a twist. I mean, I love seeing stuff like this. Just scrolling through the cast list, I see that Jamie Farr, Corporal Klinger from MASH,
Yep.
listed as the Jacob Marley character. So, I mean, I love that. loved MASH, watching the reruns and syndication as a kid. So just scrolling through here, you got Robert Goulet playing Robert Goulet. I mean, it's a great cast, great ensemble, if you will.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's just something that it's a staple for the holidays. Like, I'm sure it is for you. It is for me. I have to make sure I watch this at least once. And yeah, great, love it. And I mean, it's classic Murray. So.
Oh yeah, it's Bill Murray at his best, comedy wise. I think obviously more recently his drama has kind of overtaken his comedy, and I have no problem with that either. But this is prime. It was 4 years after Ghostbuster, a few years before Groundhog's Day, so he was in the prime of his comedy world when he made this movie. And I think it gets overlooked because of it's not so bright and cheery. But it's just so good. I really love this movie, and I want more people to see it if they haven't seen it. I definitely recommend, obviously, as you can tell, checking it out this Christmas. If it's maybe one that you just missed or only seen once and thought it was okay, watch it again. It's great performances. Bobcat is fantastic in this as well.
Yes. Speaking of Bobcat, real quick, he did a stand-up performance not a couple of years ago where he comes out, I was like, oh, Bobcat Goldthwait is going to do a stand-up show. Oh, gee, I wonder if this is going to be 45 minutes of and it wasn't. And he made light right at the beginning, and it was really good. So
people don't realize that was a character that he played, and he only did it in a few movies back in the 80s and maybe early 90s because that's why they cast him. So he knew that he kind of had to bring it out at some point. Like in Scrooge, he doesn't really bring it out till the end. He's more of just a really straight-laced character up until the very end where he's kind of a little nutty because of Bill Murray's character.
Going back to touching on how, this is a darker version of the Christmas Carol. To quote the great Rocky Balboa, life ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
Yes, exactly. Not everything's happy all the time. And Bobcat does play the Bob Cratchit of the movie. He gets fired. He basically is the person that Bill Murray's Scrooge ruins his life in a day. And he doesn't take that sitting down, which it leads to some very funny moments later in the movie. Nice. Yeah, and also Brian Doyle Murray, obviously, in this movie as well as John Murray, because anywhere Bill Murray went, his brothers went with him. So, yeah. Always fun to have the Murray brothers around. All right, Wayne, which was the first one you want to talk about today?
Since it is classic Christmas, I am going with just about the most classic of Christmas movies, in my opinion, 1946, It's a Wonderful Life, starring James Jimmy Stewart, Donna Reed, Lionel Barrymore. That's a funny last name. Where have I heard that one before?
Yeah, it's almost as if he's part of that whole Barrymore family.
Yeah, strange. Thomas Mitchell, Henry Travers, Beulah Bondi. That's my new favorite name of the day. Bondi. All right, so if you have not heard of this film, this classic, here's a little synopsis, the rundown. An angel sent from heaven to help desperately frustrated businessmen by showing him what life would be like had he never existed. So this is the story of George Bailey, played by Jimmy Stewart, where the angel Clarence, played by Henry Travers, is sent down, and Clarence's mission is to help George realize that life is precious. And in a sense, then Clarence will get his angel wings and become a full-fledged guardian angel.
Yes, which is what we're told that in the beginning, that Clarence is an angel. He's been one for about 200 years or so, and he wants to get his wings. So then he basically is shown George's life in like somewhat of a newsreel situation for what Clarence is seeing. George is a kid, he loses his hearing, and then it cuts to him older, working with his father, and he's going to go off and be an adventurer and enjoy the world, but then his father gets sick and dies, and then so he has to take over the family business. So then they send off the other son to go to college to get his degree, and he's supposed to take over the family business, but he comes back married. And so then George doesn't want to put it on him. So George, basically, it's a movie about a guy who his whole life has wanted to go out and see the world, but then he keeps having to stay in this town and preserve his family's legacy of this company where they loan money to people in the town because a lot of times the bank will ask for more interest and he doesn't do that. And so they allow these people to take these loans out and they help them. And then we're kind of left with this struggle of a man who wants to do the right thing, but he also wants to enjoy his life. And that's the hard part that he's having. And you find out early on in the movie, in the very beginning, they tell Clarence that George Bailey is going to kill himself. And that's why Clarence is being sent down to help him. So it is essentially, it's a Christmas movie about suicide. Now, they don't focus solely on that throughout the whole movie. So it's not a movie about a man wanting to kill himself for an hour or for 2 hours or however long it is. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it is.
I've often thought that it would be nice to see some sort of adaptation where it is kind of focused on the suicidal aspects of a selfless person who's continually taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it would I think that would work. And I mean, I don't want anybody to just remake It's a Wonderful Life because you can't really replicate the magic that this film captured. But
well, and they could do something similar. They did Family Man with Nicolas Cage and Don Cheadle in the basically the main two roles, which is a
great movie. I about that one. That's
it's a nice retelling of this story. I think they take the suicide thing out, I believe. I mean, in this movie, too, the suicide aspect of it is more a means to an end. He finds out he's worth more dead than alive, and his company is now in debt, and he feels he needs to give money to his family and to his company, so that's the way he can do it, is by ending his life. So it's very sad, obviously, when you kind of break it down. And I hope we're not spoiling this for anybody, because this movie has been out for 70 years. But, it's a classic for sure.
The great Lionel Barrymore, who plays the devious, evil Mr. Potter, the bank who just wants to, shut everything down and, be in control of everything.
Yeah.
And obviously, also just a scumbag when he finds the money that
Uncle Billy
loses or misplaces, and it doesn't try to find out who it belongs to, or he knows who it
belongs
belongs
to. No, he knows. Yeah, he knows. Yep.
Scumbag.
He's a scumbag.
But the last 20 minutes of this film where, George realizes that he's, his life has meaning and that he is loved. And so he goes running through the town doing the whole, Merry Christmas, movie house! Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building alone! Merry Christmas, Emporium! My mouth's bleeding, Bert! My mouth's bleeding! Zuzu pedals! Zuzu pedals! There they are! And then, of course, they show up to arrest him because they think that George has embezzled all this money.
Yeah.
And he's happy to be alive. So, all of a sudden, here comes everybody, the whole town. Mary Bailey, George's wife, goes around and explains, hey, George is in trouble. And, here's the situation, here's the amount of money. And everybody just, liquidates their assets, basically, for the time and bring thousands of dollars to help cover
whatever they have. Yep.
And it's really just the most touching, emotional. If you can't hear it in my voice, I'm getting a little verklempt right now just thinking about the ending of this movie and showing how the good that you do for people can be returned when you are in a time of need. Maybe it is a little bit of frosting and cupcake thinking because, it maybe that's not reality in this day and age. I'd love to think that it is, but, watching this it leaves me with a feel-good feeling.
Yeah.
Feel-good feeling.
That feel-good feeling that you never feel until you feel good again.
I with them fancy words and whatnot. But classic. This was one of those movies I remember as a kid that was played 24 hours a day. Obviously, that mantle's been taken up by A Christmas Story now, which is its own right. But I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about what you want to talk about next.
I'm going to talk a little bit about this one first, just because there's some interesting backstory to this movie. It came out, it really didn't get great reviews, even though it was nominated for some Academy Awards. It didn't get great reviews. People didn't really care for it. But then in I want to say, I don't have the exact numbers here in front of me, but I want to say in like it was either like the 70s or the 80s, like it was designated like anybody could show it. So it started airing on TV, and it just became this instant like Christmas classic that people didn't even realize was was going to be a popular movie, because at the time it wasn't very popular. So it kind of had this second life on TV, which is what's funny when we think about movies today. Like sometimes they get a second life on streaming or on home video. This one was kind of the first of its kind to be like, didn't do great in the theaters. Critics weren't loving it like all over, and then they released it on TV, and it becomes this all-time Christmas classic that people now talk about to this day. And it's like, if you haven't seen this movie, you don't like movies, you know? That's the kind of the essential viewing for Christmas movies. So it had this real interesting kind of path and history that it took to be a classic Christmas movie. And I think a lot of these movies that we talk about too have that same path, like same as Scrooge. I don't think it was it wasn't a box office hit when it came out. And the next one I'm going to talk about, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Like it has become a Christmas classic because everybody watches it for Christmas. It wasn't necessarily a huge hit when it came out. But Chevy Chase kind of has been living off this movie for as long as I can remember, and it came out in right around the time of my last one that I just talked about, Scrooge. It was 1989, I believe.
Yep, December 1st, 1989. So at least it had the timing right.
It had the timing right, yes. So it's directed by Jeremiah S. Shekic, produced by John Hughes, written by John Hughes, starring Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Randy Quaid, as well as Juliette Lewis, Johnny Galecki, Diane Ladd, John Randolph, Doris Roberts, just a lot of recognized people. It's got Bill Murray's brother, Brian Doyle Murray, as well as the evil, not really evil, but mean douchebag boss of Chevy Chase. So this movie follows the Griswolds as they are on Christmas vacation, from school and work and stuff. That's really where the vacation part comes in, because they don't actually go anywhere in this particular vacation movie. But everybody comes to them, and they're hosting the family for Christmas. They got to get, they go out for the opening scene. They go out to get the big family Christmas tree, which covered the funny part where it covers the car, and Chevy Chase almost kills them on the road, and it's hilarious. And they don't bring the saw, so they basically got to rip the tree out of the ground, which is ridiculous when you think about it, because it would probably be physically impossible. But they do it.
Physics don't matter in movies, sir, especially holiday ones.
Yes, this is very true. But I mean, this is a Christmas classic. I think everybody knows this movie to this point. From the neighbors, Juliet, Louise Dreyfus, and Nicholas Guest, Christopher Guest's brother, play Todd and Margot. I mean, they've even become a hugely part of the mythos of this franchise, or of this movie, sorry, because just the lines they have between each other, and of course the great line when Chevy Chase says, "Bend over and I'll show you." How dare you talk to me like that, Griswold? I wasn't talking to you. Just so many great one-liners out of this movie. Chevy Chase is great in this flick. Beverly D'Angelo is just as funny as he is, and it really helps in this movie. It's just a really fun holiday Christmas movie, and it's a classic. I mean, what else really needs to be said about it? It's a classic film. I've watched it probably every year on Christmas since I was probably 9 years old. So, I mean, it's just one of those movies that has, at least for my family, has been at the forefront of our holiday movies for the majority of my life. And I love it. It's a great film. I think everybody should see it. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out.
I really love that Randy Quaid is really able to be himself in this movie and role. Cousin Eddie kind of oh, God, this guy's kind of over the top. And lo and behold, Randy Quaid and all of his uniqueness...
Who knew?
Really just it's not really a portrayal. It's kind of just here I am. I mean, obviously, he brings a lot to the movie. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about one-liners, I'm not going to repeat the line just for the younger ears that may be watching us. But when it's full, it's full.
There's there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of great one-liners in it, a lot of great performances from everybody. It's fun always to see a young Jonathan Galucki and a young Juliette Lewis play Rusty and Audrey. Yeah, so I mean, no, it's one of those movies. Like I said, it's a classic. If you haven't seen it, you definitely need to check it out. Wayne, what's your next one?
All right, moving on with the classics. I'm going to 1954's White Christmas. A successful song and dance team become romantically involved with a sister act and team up to save a failing Vermont inn of their former commanding general. Another absolute classic. This is another one that we grew up watching in my house on the holidays, and as a child, I'm like, oh, this is so boring. Oh, these old people singing and dancing. And it wasn't until my much later years, I talk like I'm a 70-year-old man. What are you talking about? Back in the day, we didn't have snow. No, but we're talking Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye as Bob Wallace and Phil Davis, who team up with Rosemary Clooney and Vera Ellen, the Haynes sisters. Bing Crosby's character and Danny Kaye's character are soldiers, and their commanding officer treated them very well in the war. You know, we're talking about, I believe it was World War II. So their commanding officer runs an inn in Vermont, and it's followed upon hard times, and they're a popular performing group, and they team up with the sisters to kind of save the inn. It's really a touching, heartfelt story with a lot of comedy sprinkled in there. Movies of this time, like Holiday Inn as well is another classic. And then you got like Singing in the Rain. You get these triple threat actors who can sing, dance, and act amazingly. And just the amount of work and physical performance that goes into these roles is truly amazing. I'm just going to read the storyline real quick, just kind of give everybody a synopsis, since this movie is, almost 70 years old as well. Having left the Army following World War II, Bob Wallace and Phil Davis team up to become a top song and dance act. Davis plays matchmaker and introduces Wallace to a pair of beautiful sisters, Betty and Judy Haynes, who also have a song and dance act. When Betty and Judy travel to a Vermont lodge to perform a Christmas show, Wallace and Davis follow, only to find their former commander, General Waverly, as the lodge owner. A series of romantic mix-ups ensue as they perform to help the general save his inn. That's the basic synopsis of it. And, the songs and the dance and the costumes, it's just over the top, beautiful, and so well choreographed. If you really want to have an old-timey holiday experience in a movie, you got to check out this. I also mentioned Holiday Inn is another one that you really should check out. Obviously, we already talked about It's a Wonderful Life. Miracle on 34th Street is another one. I'm going into honorable mentions. I'm probably jumping the gun here because I don't even know what your third one is. So I'm guessing it's not one of these old-timey ones.
No.
But hey, Bing Crosby is a classic crooner. His voice is on display. If you're feeling nostalgic, give it a watch. I watch these, just to remember, my grandparents that are no longer with me, and kind of, just feel nostalgic. And it's like they're in the room with me when I watch these. So go ahead, hit me up with what you got to say next, sir.
Well, my third one is become a modern day classic, and that is Elf. Came out in 2003. Directed by Jon Favreau. Everybody knows him as an actor and as a director now. He's done many movies. This was his second film that he directed. He did Maid, and then he did Elf. And it was a big break, a big chance everybody was taking on him because they didn't know if he could handle a project so big. And he knocked it out of the park. And if you've watched, there is how these movies got made on Netflix. They have a holiday one, and they talk about Elf in that. And it's really interesting. I think people should watch it because it kind of goes through on how they were actually able to do a lot of the things that they were able to do. It stars Will Ferrell, James Caan, Zooey Deschanel, Mary Steenburgen, Edward Asner, or Ed Asner as most people know him, Bob Newhart. Ed Asner plays Santa Claus, and Will Ferrell plays Buddy, and he's an elf in the North Pole. And he is different because he's not really an elf. He's a grown human adult, played by the always hilarious Will Ferrell. And he grew up around all these elves, thinking he was one of them, wanting to fit in. But he could only, he only built 100 chairs in a minute or something like that, which was behind production of all the other elves because he wasn't a true elf. Right. So he goes on this journey to find his father in New York, and it turns into this kind of fish out of water holiday movie with Will Ferrell dressed up as a giant elf. And that right there, the premise alone sells it. And what's funny is when you watch the Netflix special on it, they talk about how the producers didn't think it was going to work. Will Ferrell wasn't a star yet. He was an SNL person who all his movies that had come out before that did not do well. Now, while they were making this movie, Old School did come out, and Old School did very well, and he was a huge part of why it did very well. There is some interesting backstory of them wanting to turn it into an Old School type movie and kind of take all the family-friendly stuff out of it, which obviously the people making it, if you've seen Elf, would not work. They wanted to make it like the old cartoons like Rudolph and Frosty and Santa Claus. They used a lot of that animation. They actually brought on the Chiodo brothers who did, I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They're big animators. They did all the animation for this movie, which I honestly did not know that until I saw that little documentary on Netflix. It's just, it's a great holiday classic. It is actually probably the only movie that my wife enjoys with Will Ferrell in it. So if that should say a lot because she does not like movies like those type of comedies he's usually in. It's one of those movies that if you watch it, I find it hard for people not to enjoy this movie because it's just fun from beginning to end. He plays it so lighthearted that it's hard not to root for him. You know what I mean? He's the joy at the center of this movie. And I think if you just kind of let that overtake you, it's really hard not to enjoy this film. And James Caan is a great character actor, obviously, as people know him, and he's great in this movie because he doesn't do comedy. And I think this role required someone who didn't do comedy. And again, if you watch the Netflix thing, they wanted James Caan. That was one that I think when Favreau came on board, he's like, well, let's get James Caan. And they're like, oh my God, that would be great. Can we get James Caan? And they got him. They were shocked. They were able to secure him for the movie, and it really helped, I think. And it helped launch Zooey Deschanel's career.
Blonde Zooey Deschanel completely throws me for a loop in this. I'm like, is that her?
It does.
No, who is that? Before the days of IMDb, I was like, wait a minute, hang on. Yeah, no, it's got to be. No, let's I don't know.
Yes, especially if you had just seen Almost Famous about 3 or 4 years before this, she looked completely different. So, and she was only in that one for maybe 15 minutes or whatever. She played the sister or whatever. So this movie...
Wait till we get to review that one.
Yeah, of course. That is a great movie. But this movie, we kind of launched her career as well, and I think it cemented the movie as a holiday classic, having all these people in the movie in the first place. Now that you can look back and see Zoe because she's been on New Girl and had her career, this is kind of where it started. Will Ferrell, people had known Will Ferrell before this movie, but this is really his first single solo film, and it blew up, and it's basically so. Maybe some people don't like it because it's the reason we have Will Ferrell today, and people that are Will Ferrell fans are maybe not happy with that. But it was successful. It was a huge hit. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Will Ferrell gives a fantastic, lovable performance as Buddy. There's lots of great one-liners. There's lots of one-liners that I use in my everyday vernacular. One of my favorites is "You sit in a throne of lies." You smell like cheese as well. You smell like beef and cheese.
Candy canes, candy corns.
Or when he takes the syrup and puts it all over the spaghetti, which he apparently actually did, which is gross. I should also mention Peter Dinklage is great as the author. And then you also have Kevin Gage and Andy Richter as two of the writers. KG is one of the guys from Tenacious D. Andy Richter works on Conan O'Brien's show. And then also the scene in the post office, or not the post office, the mailroom, with the prisoners, and they get drunk on peppermint schnapps because Buddy wants to, because it's got peppermint in it, so he thinks it's a holiday drink. Just so many great scenes, so many great one-liners. Apparently, they filmed it in a mental institution, which kind of one of those things that you look at it and you're like, yeah, you know what? Kind of makes sense, because it's kind of crazy when you look at the movie as a whole. But it's just a lot of fun. And this is the other movie I mentioned, like Scrooged, basically ends in a huge musical number where the entire cast is singing a song. The whole point of this movie is to get the Christmas spirit back, because people stop believing. And they do. And that's kind of the premise of the movie. And that's why they sing at the end. Santa Claus is coming to town, I believe. And it's just a great, fun holiday classic. That, again, we watch it every year. It's Will Ferrell is fantastic in it, and it was a great kind of start to Jon Favreau's big budget box office movies. So, as following his indie directorial debut in Made. So,
yeah, I know you already touched on. You said on a Throne of Lies, but the gimbal Santa, played by the great Artie Lang,
yes,
great character in my opinion. And you talked about how. Mary Steenburgen plays a little small role in that, but she's the one that starts the grandiose sing along at the end there. I'm sitting here trying to remember the last time I watched this, because this movie is so iconic. If you've seen it once, you got these scenes that you just remember. And I can't remember the last time I actually watched it. I'm gonna actually have to sit down and make time to watch this one, because it's not a popular one with everyone in my household, but I love it. So, feeling a little nostalgic again for this 17-year-old film. And gosh, saying that makes you just feel, what? 17 years?
Yeah, I know. Long time.
All right, sir.
All right, Wayne, what's your third one?
I'm moving it up a little bit. I'm out of the 50s. I'm out of the golden age. I'm going with 1992's The Muppet Christmas Carol. I saw this in theaters when it came out. Came out the 11th of December, 1992. As we talked about The Christmas Carol and, the iconic Charles Dickens novel, we already had a version of it that we talked about with Scrooged. This is more of the classical adaptation with all the characters in their proper names. Bob Cratchit, obviously Ebenezer Scrooge, plays by Michael Caine, but with Muppets. This is a magical movie for me. I saw this with my my aunt, who's no longer with us, who was very near and dear to me. So every time I watch this, I get a little emotional, a little sentimental, more so than with other films. When they're closing up the shop for Christmas, they go into the song, there's magic everywhere this evening, magic everywhere. Only One More Sleep Till Christmas is what I believe the name of the track is song. What the name of the track is called, excuse me. Getting a little emotional again, forgive me. I'm an emotional guy. It's the holidays, damn it. Where's my rum eggnog? I love that song specifically. It's very interesting because the Muppets, you got Kermit the Frog playing Bob Cratchit, Miss Piggy is playing Emily Cratchit's wife. The great Gonzo actually is the narrator, Charles Dickens, accompanied by the Rat. And then you just see all your favorites. You got Fozzie Bear, the great Frank Oz, the puppeteer, who was responsible for nearly all the puppet manipulation specifically.
He did that little green guy in Star Trek Wars, I think. What that movie was? The thing with the guy with the pointy ears. He was that guy too. Yeah.
Yogurt or whatever.
Yogurt. Yes, yogurt. Yes.
This is just a very fun, loving, touching. Whoa, sorry, that came up a little weird. It's a very touching adaptation, and it's fun for it really keeps the kids engaged because Muppets. It's a classic movie. It's one of my favorites as well. I'm glad you're talking about it. It just
from the moment I saw it, I love this movie. It was, again, like you, I probably saw it in the theaters back in 1992. I'm sure it was. When did it come out? Around the holidays?
December 11th.
Yeah.
So perfect.
Yeah, perfect timing. Almost to the day almost. So yeah, I mean, it was a great movie, and it's one of my favorite tellings of the Christmas Carol. Probably this and Scrooge are my top two, which is funny because there's so many like serious adaptations, or there's that really bizarre Jim Carrey one from a few years ago now, probably like 10 years ago now.
Is that animated one?
Yeah, it was the stop motion one, which was just strange. The whole dead eye, like Polar Express, everyone had the dead eyes. They could never quite figure that out. But yeah, this movie, I mean, again, like you said, it's basically, it's this great classic Christmas Carol story from Charles Dickens, but with Muppets. And that makes it so, like, people wouldn't think that would make it so much better, but it does make it so much better. And it's such a fun movie to just sit down and just watch with the family. And I have not seen this one in a while, but it is still one of those ones I kind of hold dear, because it's just one of those movies as a kid that I watched, tons of times because it's fantastic. I believe now it's on Disney Plus, so you guys can watch it anytime you want. So it's definitely go over there, check it out. Wayne, anything else you want to mention about this movie?
It was directed by Brian Henson. I believe he's the son of Jim Henson.
Yep.
And obviously the Muppets were in large part due to Jim Henson's creativity and bringing them all to life.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just fantastic. It's just something it makes me happy talking about. And I don't think for me, there has been a better Muppet adaptation movie since this. And nothing is.
No,
everything. So
I agree. It's been there. Honestly, it's my favorite Muppet movie too. On top of it being one of my favorite Christmas movies, definitely my favorite Muppet movie. I do want to talk about two other movies that we kind of talked about last week that we didn't really mention in the main part here. First one being Love Actually. It's a rom-com holiday classic starring Hugh Grant and Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman, Liam Neeson.
Walking Dead.
Oh, Andrew Lincoln. Yes, Andrew Lincoln. Just a huge cast. A great flick. Laura Linney is in it as well. Just a lot of fun. I know there are some detractors of this movie over the years. People, I think, have studied it a lot because it's been out for 17 years. So you get people that watch it and they're like, oh, is it really that good? And, of course, there's some moments in it that maybe aren't great for the culture of today. But it's just a really fun rom-com holiday movie. And it's another one that I watch every Christmas. This one my wife likes as well, so we watch this one together. It's a lot of fun. Great performances from everybody. And Hugh Grant is awesome in it. And, just that beginning. It's also got Colin Firth in it, too. I forgot to mention him. Just a huge cast.
It's got quite the ensemble.
It does. It's also Chiwetel Ejiofor and... Chiwetel Ejiofor and what's her name? Drawing a blank. Pirates of the Caribbean. Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley.
Yes. So yeah, just a great holiday rom-com. I mean, just if you like rom-coms, I don't see why you wouldn't like this movie. Yes, what Andrew Lincoln's character does is kind of creepy and maybe not ideal, but it's still, I think, kind of adds to the charm of the movie at the time when it came out. Of getting things off your chest, because in this movie, Christmas means saying the truth, basically saying what's on your mind, and that's what he does. And whether that's good or bad for the other characters, that's yet to be, or that's for you to determine yourself. The other film I want to talk about has always been one of my favorite movies. I didn't talk about it today because we planned on talking about it and I just didn't bring it up. But it's Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, This movie stands out to me for two reasons. One, because I'm into horror films and Halloween type films, and it's basically a Halloween Christmas movie, so that's amazing in itself. The other reason is I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. Now, Tim Burton didn't direct this film; it was directed by his friend Henry Selick. But Tim Burton created it while working at Disney and kind of sold it to them and then went off and started his career. So he, did Pee-wee, did Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Batman. And then finally this movie came back around. He was too busy doing Batman Returns, which we talked about last week, being another Christmas movie. But he oversaw the production of this movie. And this is the other one on Netflix's holiday how did it get made holiday movies. It's Elf and Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a lot of interesting information into Nightmare Before Christmas and how they were able to get it done. Danny Elfman did all the music. He actually recorded the whole voice of Jack. They kept his singing voice. They replaced him as the actor because they didn't think he was that good of an actor, but they kept his singing voice. It's just a great, again, another one, just a great holiday musical. Great music. It has great music all the way through. The sets are fantastic. When you think about how they do stop motion, it's just insane. That they were talking in the special on Netflix and how it took them like one day would be like 40 seconds of the movie, and that's it. And they're like, it's just insane because you got to click, 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 move their hand, move their hand, move their hand, move their hand. You know, it's just one of those things.
The amount of patience and perseverance,
yeah.
That is just, that's something I don't have to. Nope. Sorry.
Yep, I could never do it. I always thought about that. I'm like, there's no. I admire the hell out of them for doing it. I could never do it.
Absolutely.
Just another one, just a great Christmas classic. It's very similar to It's a Wonderful Life. It took time. It was probably when it came out. I want to say when it hit DVD, because it did okay when it hit home video, but when it really hit DVD back in the early 2000s, it became like this Christmas classic. And there were Hot Topic had backpacks, shirts, pins, cups, mugs, and like that's really when Disney decided to get behind it and throw all their efforts behind it, which has made it the holiday classic it is today because they finally paid attention to it. So what people don't know about this movie is, yes, Disney released it, but they had no faith that it was going to reach younger kids, so they released it under Touchstone, which is their more adult label for Disney. It was rated PG or PG-13, and then it was just kind of like put out there. And it did okay, didn't do great, and everyone thought they were never going to hear about it again. And then all of a sudden, like I said, like 10 years after that, it becomes this huge holiday classic that no one expected. And we're now watching it to this day. Disney has taken the Touchstone, like it still has Touchstone in it, but Disney has added Walt Disney pictures to the front of the movie now, so it's a big Walt Disney movie. It's all over the theme parks. You go, see Jack and Sally and Mr. Boogedy, and it's just it's there, and it's a classic. It's a classic holiday film. I think everybody should watch. It's on Disney Plus, but it's just a great flick.
Sally is now a Disney princess.
Yep.
And it's just one of those ones where its merchandise sales have earned more double or triple what the actual movie made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like ticket sales and whatnot. So it's one of those, those things. Like it's kind of like when you look at Star Wars and how they had the people that did Star Wars. They had no real faith in it, so they let George Lucas keep all of the rights to merchandise and toys. It's like,
yep.
Oh.
Oops.
Well, it's just like that. It's like, well, you never know. So when major motion picture companies are going to, do anything, they keep the rights to everything. So something like this never happens again where, heaven forfend, they don't control every aspect of the financials.
Yeah. Well, like that was what with Elf too. It was the same thing. It was, studio didn't have a lot of faith in it. They let him make it though, and because everyone liked the script, and then they basically the only bonus to something like that is they almost let you do whatever you want because they don't think it's going to do well, so they don't care. They've already given you the money, so why do they care if you just do what you want? It's going to be what it was going to be anyway, and if they make a lot of money off of it, then it's better off for it. So that's what I think is interesting in those two stories with Nightmare Before Christmas and Elf is they got to do a lot of what they wanted because the studios had no faith in their product. And it just was like Elf. They really tried to re-edit Elf to make it like old school. Yeah. So that would have been a disaster, a disaster of epic proportions. And and it wouldn't have been the movie it has become. So these are some of our favorite holiday classics, ultimate Christmas movies as we call them. So if you want to seek them out, go find them. A lot of them are playing all over the place. Like I know It's a Wonderful Life is on Amazon. I think White Christmas is on Netflix. As we mentioned, the ones any Disney produced ones are pretty much on Disney Plus. Scrooge, I'm not sure if that's playing anywhere right now, but it's a classic, so you should just buy it anyway. All right, we are going to go into our review of the week, which is the brand new Steven Soderbergh movie called Let Them All Talk, starring the great Meryl Streep, the lovely Candice Bergen, and Diane Wiest.
Three of my favorite leading ladies.
Yes.
Absolutely love.
Lucas Hedges, who was nominated for an Oscar for Manchester by the Sea and has been in countless other movies. We talked about him during our review of Honey Boy with Shia LaBeouf. And then also Gemma Chan, who has been in Crazy Rich Asians and Captain Marvel 2 and will be in The Eternals coming out next year. So this movie is directed, as I said, by Steven Soderbergh. It was written by Deborah Eisenberg. Interesting notes about this movie is it was made on that Queen Mary 2 boat, Wayne, that they shot the movie in, with very little equipment. It was Steven Soderbergh, a camera, some microphones, no lights. All the light was natural lighting, which is something that he likes to do lately, because he's just kind of one of those guys who, it's funny, he's like the anti Christopher Nolan, where Christopher Nolan wants to like use every big budget thing that you have. Steven Soderbergh's like, let's take my iPhone and a camera light and see what I can make out of it and see if people will watch it.
I see, and that's what makes the difference here. I think this looks beautiful.
It does. It looks fantastic.
Though there are some shots and some scenes where it's kind of dim. Mm-hmm. It's like they're dark. It's still very warm and rich.
It is. I wanted to talk about like his colors. What he does with colors in his movies is fantastic, and that's something since Traffic has always kind of been a staple in his movies. And I think that's something that shines big in this movie right here. Is how it looks, and how it kind of looks for a movie that really is just about people talking, which is what it is. I mean, that's essentially what the movie is, but it looks like a much different movie because of the way he shot it and the way he edited it. And it's just, again, you're watching these three people act. So let me give you the basic plot of this movie. Meryl Streep plays Alice. She is a writer. And Gemma Chan is her agent, and they're looking for the next big book from her because they haven't gotten one in a while. Is she going to write a sequel? Is she going to write a new book that's going to be epic? She's working on something she's not telling them. She's getting an award in England that she wants to go get, but she doesn't fly. So Gemma Chan's character, Karen, offers her a chance to go on a boat. And that boat goes from New York all the way to England. And it's the Queen Mary 2. And that's where the whole movie is basically set. She asks if she can invite her friends. She invites Candice Bergen, who plays Roberta. She, who is bitter and working a retail job and not really happy with Alice because Alice took her stories and kind of turned them into one of her most famous characters. Diane Wiest, who is their other friend, and she helps women get paroled out of jail that were in abusive relationships. And they are invited on this boat along with Tyler, who is Alice's nephew, played by Lucas Hedges, who his family life, as we find out, has not been great. And he kind of looked up to his aunt as his mentor. And so it's a big thing for him to be involved in this process. He's hoping to go and kind of gain some tidbits on her life and her friends. And then also Gemma Chan's Karen is secretly on board the ship. And we don't really know, or she doesn't want Alice to know that she's there. She's just trying to make sure that she gets what she gets to make, the next great novel a hit. So what you get in this movie is you get some of the greatest actors of their time, Meryl Streep, Diane Wiest, Candice Bergen, just kind of be able to do that. They just are able to act. And they are, you see a lot of scenes between Diane Wiest and Candice Bergen as they're the kind of two friends who are stuck with each other because Alice is working all the time. So they talk about their lives and stuff. And Candice Bergen's character, Roberta, talks about how she feels that Alice has kind of hurt her and hasn't apologized for it. Lucas Hedges kind of falls for Karen a little bit, so Tyler and Karen are kind of developing a little bit of a, maybe more than a friendship, as you kind of find to realize it's not necessarily the case, maybe. I guess the easiest way to describe this movie, it's about getting older and kind of realizing what you have done in your life and how maybe that makes people around you feel, I guess. Like, there's not necessarily a direct, like, what it's about, and it's a lot of it is about conversations that people have with each other. There is a twist or a shocking turn of events, whatever you want to call it, that we won't talk about, obviously. But it's an enjoyable movie, I would say. I hesitate to say, like, it's a great movie, because there are people that are not going to like it. Similar to, like, Mank from last week, like, it's definitely going to be an acquired taste, I think.
It's made for a specific viewer, and just by going through the comments on IMDb, it's like a lot of people that are giving it 2s and 3s are expecting something from Michael Bay. You know, they're coming, like, we talked about the lighting and how we thought it was really, really artistic and well done. It's like, poorly lit, hard to watch, blah, blah, blah. All they do is talk. It's like, what were you expecting?
First off, the name of the movie basically explains what it's about. Let them all talk. It's about people talking for about 2 hours. So if that doesn't interest you, don't watch it.
I know, I'm going on IMDb reviews, so, you know, every keyboard warrior with an opinion have their words displayed. I don't know. It just frustrates me. It's like,
it is
people that miss the mark that badly.
Yeah.
And you know what? Their opinion, they're entitled to it. But if you're expecting Transformers and you're going to watch this,
it's, you know, but I like watching Soderbergh movies. There's still a few that I haven't seen. But I like his movies, like we talked about already. It's because he's inventive and he's creative and he has these ideas that maybe aren't mainstream, but the way he's able to do it, he makes it look like a movie that you would think that they spent millions of dollars on when they probably really didn't. Most of the money was probably spent on getting the cast on that boat. And then after that, it was all minimal. And he was able to turn a minimal budget into a really nice looking movie and an interesting movie if you're willing to let the movie play out with the characters and enjoy just what you're watching. I mean, watching Meryl Streep perform is something that's just wonderful to see. And even like my wife, she didn't finish it with me. She fell asleep, but she was watching it with me. And at one point she's like, she's just a great actress. 'Cause like, I always believe she's the character that she is. And that's what she does. That's what she brings to it. She doesn't go about it the way of, someone like Daniel Day-Lewis, who, you know, is the character and breathes the character, but all of her characters are different, and she's able to inject something new into all of them. And in this character, too, I think she brought something different and something new that she hasn't done before, and I think it's just always lovely to see her perform. Another interesting aspect of this movie was, if you look at Wikipedia, most of the dialogue was improvised. So they had a script, you know, which I'm sure had the plot points and what they were supposed to hit, but they were allowed to come up with what they wanted on the spot if they had something good for that scene. And that's just an interesting way to film a movie. I mean, you know, when you don't know what the person's going to say, but that kind of goes to his guerrilla style filmmaking, which he's kind of developed lately. He shot an entire movie on a cell phone, unlike another director who shot one on a cell phone and it looked like it was shot on a cell phone, and that was the purpose of that director's movie. But Soderbergh shot one on a cell phone and made it look like a big budget movie. And just things that you can do technically, like he kind of shows you what you could do to make a movie on a low budget and it still be enjoyable. I had a lot of feelings of like Ocean's 11 while I was watching this movie, even though it's not a thriller. It's not suspenseful or anything, but it just the color and the lighting, I think, give you kind of that suspenseful feeling almost, and it really reminded me a lot of Ocean's 11, just the way it looked.
The musical interludes reminded me of Catch Me If You Can.
Yep. He just, you know, in my opinion, this is my opinion. He's a genius, and I've ever since Traffic, I've been following this man. I had seen movies of his before Traffic, like Out of Sight, but Traffic was the one movie that kind of spoke to me, and I was like, well, damn, this guy is a phenomenal flippin' filmmaker. I mean, he shoots since I think it was like 1996. He has shot all his own movies himself. So he's not only the director, but he's the cinematographer. He goes by a different name. I think it's like Paul Andrews as a cinematographer. But for everybody, that is Steven Soderbergh. He shoots his own movies. If you look at Traffic, something like Traffic, you could see how incredibly talented he is, not only as directing, but as shooting a film. So just to bring that, again, to this movie, his ability to just take a camera, take a couple actors, and be like, all right, let's make a movie. And it turns into this, and it looks, great. And it's just a really fun movie to watch. Just to watch everybody do what they do. Diane Wiest and Candice Bergen are a lot of fun in this movie. They give really good performances. I thought Lucas Hedges was okay at times. I think when I read that they had to come up with their own lines, I could tell there were moments I'm like, okay, maybe he just didn't have the right line there, and it seemed kind of awkward. But he holds his own for the most part against these legends, if you will. And so does Gemma Chan as well. She does a really good job. But yeah, I mean, just I don't know what else to say about this movie. It's a good movie. It's I mean, I don't even know if it'd make it in my top 10 of the year, but it's a good movie. I think people should watch it. I think people will enjoy it. If you're a film buff or a cinephile, you'll like what you see out of Soderbergh and what he does behind the camera. I think it's definitely one of the things I took out of it watching it. Kind of as a lighthearted comedy, you wouldn't really expect to take that out of it, but you do with him because he's just so talented at what he does. Everyone should watch Magic Mike. He did that one too. I like Magic Mike. It's a good movie. And again, it's another movie that looks fantastic because he knows what he's doing with the camera. And he did a lot like Traffic, where he shot all the different scenes and different colors and different lights and stuff. All right, so we are moving on to Gone But Not Forgotten. We are going to talk about someone who we just talked about, James Stewart, or Jimmy Stewart, if that's what you want to call him. I will mention this week we did have four celebrities who passed away. Baps actor Natalie Desselle Reid died at 53. She was in the movie Baps with Martin Landau and Halle Berry. Dame Barbara Windsor from EastEnders and plenty of other British shows. You just look up her resume, there's a lot. Charlie Pride, a country music star, died at 86, apparently from COVID. Very sad. And the one that I know the most, Tommy Tiny Lister from Friday, played Debo. From Fifth Element, he was the president. He was one of the prisoners on the boat in Dark Knight. He passed away at 62. He did have COVID earlier this year, but had beaten it. But there were concerns that possibly maybe effects of that maybe have had something to do with his passing. I'm sure we'll find out about that in the future. But they will all be missed, especially like I said, him personally, because I've kind of followed his career since Friday, and Fifth Element and stuff like that. He's been a fun actor to watch. Of course, he was in No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan. Just a lot of like classic roles for him. But let's get to James Jimmy Stewart. As an actor, he was born a long time ago. I'll be honest, I didn't think that he lived as long as he did. I didn't realize he was alive until I was like in high school.
Yeah, 1997. He was almost 90 years old. I didn't realize that either.
He was born in 1908 in Indiana, Pennsylvania. I don't even think that's a town anymore. That's how old he is.
Yeah, they made it a state.
He is entombed at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Jimmy Stewart. So he, I haven't seen all his movies. He's made like 80 of them. But I wanted to talk about him, one, obviously, because I knew we were going to talk It's a Wonderful Life. But I have seen, this week I watched Vertigo and Rear Window, which are great, classic Hitchcock films. Rear Window, probably I prefer Rear Window to Vertigo, but Vertigo is also very good.
Hitchcock?
Yeah, both Hitchcock, yeah. He's done, and one of my favorites that I had seen before those movies actually was Rope, which he did in 1948, which I honestly thought Rope came later, because in Rope he actually looks a little older, but I think they were just trying to make him look older. So Rope is an interesting movie. If anyone that hasn't seen it, I think it's kind of one of those Hitchcock ones that's little known. It's about two guys who are having a party for their friend, but they killed him. And they put him in a chest, and they throw a party while he's in that chest, and they invite all these people to his party to celebrate him, even though he's dead. And it's a very interesting mystery thriller. Jimmy Stewart plays like one of their old professors who was like an old detective, and so he kind of starts to piece together that something's not right here. And he is that one that ends up figuring out what happened. It's a great like classic mystery movie. The one thing about Rope was at the time, I forget who it was, if it was Orson Welles or somebody else, had made a movie that was one shot. Or maybe they made a scene that was one shot that went on for a while. And Hitchcock's like, well, I'm going to do a whole movie like that. And so with Rope, obviously back in the day, that was a lot harder. So what he did was each scene would end on a zoom into something, and then it would zoom out and it would be the next scene. So when instead of fading to black, he would zoom into black and then pull out to make it look like it was one continuous shot. So I thought that was an interesting thing for back in 1948. It's a really good movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's a lot of fun. I really like this movie a lot. Just a classic, I think, and it deserves to be talked about with his other ones, with Rear Window and Vertigo and The Man Who Knew Too Much, which I still haven't seen The Man Who Knew Too Much, but I've seen the other three.
About a different movie starring Mr. Stewart. I want to talk about the 1939 Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, with the political going on right now. I'm going to just read you the storyline and tell me if this resonates at all. A naive and idealistic Jefferson Smith, leader of the Boy Rangers, is appointed on a lark by a spineless governor of his state. He is returned to the state's senior senator, president. That was the word really weird. He is reunited with the state's senior senator, and presidential hopeful and childhood hero, Joseph Payne. In Hollywood, however, Smith discovers many of the shortcomings in the political process, as his earnest goal of a national boys' camp leads to a conflict with the state political bosses. Jim Taylor. Taylor first tries to corrupt Smith and bribe him, then later attempts to destroy him through a scandal. Now, stumbled through that there, guys, but gee, corruption in Washington. What do you know about that?
That was this was my first introduction into Jimmy Stewart. Before I even saw any bit of It's a Wonderful Life, my history teacher, I think, in high school showed us Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And the moment I saw it, I loved this movie. It's the filibuster, which is what this movie is known for and what it's about, is fantastic. When anybody doesn't know what a filibuster is when a senator can get up on the floor and speak until he's done. And in the movie, he does it for like a day or something like that. Like he just doesn't stop talking. And by the end of it, he's like passing out. And it's such a great scene in a classic film that I think people still remember this movie. It's old, obviously, but it's really good. And he was fantastic in it. The thing about Jimmy Stewart, and the reason I think he resonates with a lot of people, is he was like an everyman. And that was what everybody liked about him, is he was kind of like but he wasn't like a good old boy. He was like your neighbor next door, like that's what Jimmy Stewart was. And it was fun rewatching It's a Wonderful Life, and to remember like how charismatic he was in that movie. I didn't remember that. And very fun. He had a fun time making that movie, you could tell. And even in Rear Window and Vertigo, you get the little bit of dark comedy to some of that as well, which I thought was a lot of fun for him to play, I'm sure. And he was, the reason I want to talk about him too is he made his way into the culture. Like the Simpsons mimicked him. They had their own, remember when Bart broke his leg? They had their own Rear Window skit, which I thought was really good, where I think it's like Bart looking out the window and he actually sees like Jimmy Stewart looking at him. Like it's just a great back and forth. But that's how classic he was, is he made it into society, and like he's in kind of his voice, that voice he has is ingrained into society. So when you hear someone talk like that, you know that that's the Jimmy Stewart voice, you know? And it's so great to kind of watch these movies and see how they get revisited by people and how they catch on. Also interesting to note too that I think it was Rear Window, Vertigo, The Man Who Knew Too Much, not Too Little, that's the Bill Murray one. The Man Who Knew Too Much, and there was another one. There were 4 of his movies that hadn't been seen for 30 years. That all of a sudden, like in 1984, they started showing up on TV, and they became like they got restored because after. It might have been Rope. It might have been the 4 movies that he made with Hitchcock, and Hitchcock's family like wouldn't release the movies, and so finally they got them to release them like in 1984. So they were like classics that people hadn't seen in 30 or 40 years, which I thought was an interesting tidbit. And the fact that they mostly starred James Stewart, I thought was not that there was anything about him. I think it was just those were some of the last movies that Hitchcock made, I think. But the other one I really liked too, and this was back like in high school, I want to say. Like my girlfriend at the time, her I don't know if her dad or was a huge fan. They showed me Harvey, which is the one about him and his imaginary best friend, the giant rabbit, which was a TV movie. But it's another movie that has kind of become this instant classic, and maybe not instant, but this classic film of his, and it was a TV movie. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, that he even had a TV film under his belt that everybody was, knew, and he became not famous for, but everyone knew him for as well. And Harvey it's a fun movie, about a man with a mental illness. So as fun as those movies could be, it was a good one. But yeah, I mean, it's obvious that he is also synonymous with Christmas, with It's a Wonderful Life, and he just has kind of ingrained himself into society, maybe just by doing so many movies too. But I think he was one of those actors that most people loved. He didn't seem to have that much of a controversial side life like a lot of those old celebrities did. There was some question like of girls he dated like in his late 30s and stuff like that, but there was no, from what I could find, there was nothing like too terrible. So he was just a good dude, and he was a great actor, and I think he was just a lot of fun to watch. Even going back and watching his old movies, like he's still fun to kind of experience now, here in 2020, many years after his death and many years after he made those movies. So,
yeah, one of my favorite lesser known movies that he was in was the Stratton story of Chicago White Sox pitcher Monty Stratton, who in the 1930s compiled a 37-19 win-loss record in 3 major league seasons. He ended up having a hunting accident where he shot himself in the leg, and they had to amputate.
Yeah.
And he came back and pitched, because of after the injury and what.
Yeah.
So, it's a great movie, but just wanted to touch on, you talked about not really very controversial, and he was a pilot, and when World War II broke out, he was drafted into the United States Army in 1940. And, like many of the athletes of the time and other movie stars, they put their careers on hold and served. I find this very admirable because I'm just going to throw it out. You show me one actor that's going to do that right now, or one professional athlete that's going to walk away from millions of dollars to go.
Well, and obviously it's a lot different world too that we're living in, where they're making $20 million. You're right. You're not going to get that. I'm sure Pat Tillman obviously would come to mind for a lot of people, who was a athlete who died overseas. And and he put his career on hold to go. So yeah, you had a lot of these actors. I mean, that was what was kind of cool about these actors from the 1930s and 1940s is a lot of them during World War II were in World War II because they decided that it was their job to go serve, and that's what they did. So I mean, it's kind of cool because they have all those backstories then for those guys, and how they served and what they did. Also, he was a voice. He was Sheriff Wiley Burp in An American Tail: Fievel Goes West, which was always one of my favorite kids movies. So just the fact that he even made it into one of our generation's animated films at such an older age it was really cool. And it's probably, I'm sure it was probably like, man, this sheriff needs to be like a Jimmy Stewart type character. And they're like, well, he's still alive. Maybe we could get Jimmy Stewart. And they were able to get him for it, and worked out. So yeah, I mean, he's been gone for quite some time. And obviously he lived a full life. We don't always talk about actors in this category that died young. That's mostly what we do. But in this particular case, he lived a full life. But it's still an actor like him who was pretty much game to do whatever was offered to him, will be missed. Something that you don't always get these days. You have a lot of actors who are maybe pigeonholed or stereotyped into one role. And he didn't really do that. He did thrillers, he did westerns, he did comedies. He kind of did it all. And, that's something to admire, I think. And he kind of did it his way as well. And for back then, he made a lot of movies. You kind of look at it and you're like, man, it's like you can kind of equate him to like the Samuel L. Jackson of his time, where he was just basically in everything. Now, granted, back then they made more movies, so it's a little more impressive with Samuel L. Jackson these days because they don't make as many. But yeah, so I mean, it's just he's a cool guy to kind of go back and experience, and I hope people can go back and kind of look at it, and maybe younger generations could discover him for themselves. So it's very cool. Jimmy Stewart, wherever you are, we hope you're resting in peace, and thank you for the years of fantastic films that we have to watch and still catch up on, since I haven't watched all of them yet.
Yes.
All right, we will be moving on to Awfully Good or Just Plain Awful. This week we have a movie that came out 3 years ago, and the reason it was on, I chose it is because, one, it's a Christmas movie, and two, when it came out, there were plenty of stories about how this movie is so awful, but people couldn't stop watching it. Like, I know when it came out around the holiday season in 2017, I was listening to like a radio show. That's when I first came down to Florida. People were talking about how they watched it like 11 times. And I was like, well, what is this movie? And I never really watched it. My wife had watched it. She even forgot she watched it because we started watching it the other night. She's like, I don't remember this movie at all. Then halfway through, she's like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw this. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I know you did. We had a conversation. It is called A Christmas Prince. And it stars Rose McIver from iZombie, Ben Lamb, Sarah Douglas, Daniel Fathers, Alice Krieg, and Tariya Sharif. It's a movie, as people know, about if you can qualify it as such. They made 3 of them, so it's a franchise.
Yeah.
It's a rom-com about a woman who is a journalist in New York, even though one of the funniest parts in the opening, when they do the montage, my wife pointed out, there were quite a few shots from Chicago. So they do this montage of New York, which you see, the I think the Empire State Building and the Torch Lady, Statue of Liberty, that one.
From henceforth, she will be named Torch Lady. It is bequeathed and known.
But there were some shots of like local Chicago or like Chicago downtown streets and stuff. So interesting anyway to start. Regardless, she's a reporter who has been tasked with with reporting on the soon-to-be king of this great country of Eldovia, which was obviously a fake place, but it's a fake place where everyone's British. So I thought that was kind of funny that like they didn't try to like come up with this weird accent. It's like, but they're just all British, and that's all it is. And there's this king who died, and the prince named Richard, who is will be King Richard II, is to take over, and she's going to do this story with all these other reporters, and she ends up getting like caught in the house, and she says that she's the tutor because that's who she gets confused with. So she becomes the princess's tutor, and then she meets the prince and falls in love and blah blah blah, and it's all lovey dovey, and it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's it's a movie, and it has people in it. That's about all nice I could say about it.
Hey, that you just okay. I mean, satire, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I also thought it was funny too that the dad, who I found out is from like England/Canada, tried to do like this New York accent, but like partway through the movie, I'm like, that guy's not from New York. I'm like, I can tell you right now, he has never been to New York. It's just, yeah, it's bad. I mean, it's trashy bad, I guess. Like, there's probably people that, if you love watching the Lifetime holiday films, you'll probably like this movie. I would say
A Hallmark disaster.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like I said, I wanted us to watch it just so we could watch it and be like, oh, but there really isn't a lot of value to it. It's not funny really in many ways. There were some odd moments that, like, when they're on the sled and they're going down the hill and stuff, and then all of a sudden the arch nemesis, the guy who could also be the next king, they come by on a horse and carriage. Like, I'm like, what, why are they even there? Like, what does it have to do with? But it's obviously, it was just set up for that to happen. Yeah, it's not very good, and it's, like I said, it's not very enjoyable either. So there's not even like that aspect of it. It's just a bad movie, but people love bad movies, and this is one of them. So for us, not so much, but for everybody else, I guess check it out. All right, so we're gonna kind of gloss over the what we've watched this week, Wayne, because there's a lot to get to in the movie news section from what we had come out. I did finally finish Boys season 2, The Boys, which I thought was fantastic. I don't know if you got to finish it yet, Wayne, but I thought that was really good.
I have not. I got about halfway through it and I forgot. The whole not releasing everything.
Yeah, I think it threw a lot of people off, but I recommend going to finish it. It's real. The last 4 episodes are fantastic. It's really good. No. All right, so movie news this week. Star Wars, Marvel, Disney had their huge thing where they release all their information. So we got a lot to talk about here. First, I'm going to start with some rumors which have not been confirmed yet. I think they will be later. The whole Spider-Verse thing looks like it's happening. Alfred Molina has been rumored to join Jamie Foxx in the new Spider-Man movie. Molina from the Tobey-verse, Jamie Foxx from the Garfield-verse. Let's see. Kirsten Dunst has also been rumored to be returning as well, as Mary Jane from the Tobey-verse. Right now, Daredevil also rumored to be in Spider-Man 3. Charlie Cox rumored to continue playing him, which is awesome. Rachel McAdams has finally signed on to Doctor Strange 2, and the whole cast is supposed to work into Spider-Man 3. So that the whole multiverse, Spider-Verse thing, that's going to kind of come into that. The Hawkeye series has been filming and has officially been announced. They've added Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. Florence Pugh will play her character from Black Widow, and Vera Farmiga will play Haley Steinfeld's mother. Before I get to the other Star Wars and Marvel news, there are some other True Blood reboot in the works. Don't know why, really. Kevin Hart and Wesley Snipes are doing a limited drama series for Netflix. Okay, Ahsoka Tano TV series in the works with Rosario Dawson. Also, one called The Rangers of the New Republic. Hayden Christensen is to return as Anakin Skywalker in the Obi-Wan series.
Excuse me, sir. Technically, he's Darth Vader because it's taken after Return of the Jedi. Or, I'm sorry, after Revenge of the Sith. Get your Star Wars correct when you were speaking about it.
Well, but he's got to take his helmet off at some point, so...
He's killed Darth Vader, sir. He's killed Anakin Skywalker.
Star Wars Rogue Squadron, coming from Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. It's a movie about the starfighters, I guess. It's a big movie for her. I guess her dad was in the military and he flew planes and he died in combat. So that's in the trailer if you've seen it. So I thought that was real interesting. Mystery thriller called Star Wars The Acolyte coming. Not sure exactly what that is, but I'm sure we'll find out more information. Peter and Wendy movie is coming to Disney Plus with Jude Law as Captain Hook. It's Always Sunny has been renewed for 4 more seasons. This is all Disney Plus news for the most part because they now own Fox and FX and all that stuff. So that's all came out the same day.
What a conglomerate.
Yeah, I know, seriously. Alien TV series going to FX from the creator of Fargo, the TV show, not the Coen brothers. New FX on Hulu shows include The Old Man with Jeff Bridges, American Horror Stories, so I'm assuming that will be a bunch of short stories. Platform, Why the Last Man, Reservation Dogs, which I couldn't really find out anything about that, but obviously it's a play on Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino, and then Shogun, which is an old like samurai story that's obviously getting a re-up on FX. Sister Act 3 coming to Disney Plus with Whoopi Goldberg. Loki TV show has finally been official. There's a big trailer. Everybody should go watch it. I'll get to the release date here soon. Christian Bale joins the cast of Thor 4 finally as the villain Gore the Butcher. There is a Buzz Lightyear movie coming in 2022 where Chris Evans will be playing the original Space Ranger Buzz Lightyear. Be interesting on how that turns out.
Not the toy, the actual man.
The actual man, yes, exactly. So people freaking out that it's not Tim Allen, there's a reason. I'm sure Tim Allen will probably be in it, I would imagine. I Am Groot shorts from Disney Plus are on the way. John Watts, the director of all 3 new Spider-Man movies, will be directing the new Fantastic Four movie, so look out for that news in the near future. Hocus Pocus 2 is officially coming to Disney Plus. Everyone's been hyped about that for quite some time since since Disney Plus started up, so people are looking forward to that.
Yeah. 1 year late on that one, Chief.
Yeah, I know. Live action animated hybrid of Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, which I was a huge fan of growing up, starring John Mulaney and Andy Samberg as Chip 'n Dale, coming to Disney Plus. I'm actually excited for this because I like those 2 guys a lot.
Absolutely.
Disenchanted, which is the sequel to Enchanted, is going to be a straight to Disney Plus feature with Amy Adams returning in the lead role. Ant-Man and the Wasp is called Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Peyton Reed will return to direct with Catherine Newton from Freaky joining the cast as Cassie Lang, who is older now, so they had to get a different actress. Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country is King the Conqueror, the villain in the new Ant-Man movie. Live action Beauty and the Beast prequel series coming to Disney Plus about LeFou and Gaston. I have yet to see the new movie, but I heard people liked them a lot in that movie. Josh Gad played LeFou. Luke Evans played Gaston.
They were both, yes.
Yeah. New Evil Dead video game coming to all platforms in 2021. I am super pumped about this because Ash Williams is returning, everybody, and it's going to be fantastic, I think. She-Hulk series, they finally confirmed Tatiana Maslany, even though she even denied it up to 2 weeks ago. Disney's
Mark Ruffalo finally signed on to that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she signed on. She's confirmed Mark Ruffalo and Tim Roth are returning to reprise their roles of the Hulk and Abomination. Disney's Raya the Last Dragon getting Mulan treatment. It'll be on Disney Plus and theaters same day for that PVOD $30 price if you want to own it. Andor is the official title of the Cassian Star Wars prequel TV show. Spin-off series of Up about Doug the dog coming to Disney Plus. This one I'm excited about, Wayne. Even though I didn't love the movie that they made with him in it, the Lando TV show is in development at Disney Plus, and I really love Donald Glover, so I'm excited for this one. Secret Invasion, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, is going to be a series, which is where in the comics where the Skrull have kind of been other superheroes throughout the country or the world. So Samuel L. Jackson will lead that series. And Ben Mendelsohn was in Captain Marvel as one of the Kree, I think, or Skrulls, I can't remember. Ironheart, which is another Marvel TV series, will be a superhero from the comics. I'm not familiar with Ironheart. This one I'm not 100% sold on. Armor Wars with War Machine. Don Cheadle returns, obviously. Someone steals Tony Stark's armor, and he has to go hunt it down. So we'll see how that one turns out.
but yeah, it's like
That was the one that, like, all their shows, I'm like, yes, but that was the one I was like, do we need that? But we'll see. I'll watch it, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm gonna be the guy, and I love Star Wars. Like, do we really need this much saturation?
I know.
It's not all about Jedi and lightsabers. Well, at least I'll give you that.
Emma Stone to star in a new TV series for the Uncut Gems directors. Not sure what that's going to be, but it's a comedy series. Pinocchio starring Tom Hanks as Geppetto coming to Disney Plus from Robert Zemeckis. Cheaper by the Dozen remake with Gabrielle Union coming to Disney Plus. Guardians of the Galaxy getting its own holiday special in 2022 in the way of Star Wars The Holiday Special. James Gunn, unironically a fan of the Star Wars Holiday Special, as he put on Twitter. So we'll see how that comes out. He's super excited for that, he said. Disney Plus adding a Star tab, apparently, where you'll be able to find their R-rated content, such as like Alien and Aliens and Kingsman and stuff like that. Nice. Very interesting. I'm not sure when that's going to go live, but that's something that they have been working on. They're making TV series out of Moana, Tiana, which is the Princess and the Frog princess, Baymax from Big Hero 6, and Zootopia. A new Green Hornet adaptation from David Coep is on the way. Mighty Ducks reboot is official with Emilio Estevez, more in a supporting role, I believe, and Lauren Graham is going to be the main character. And officially announced Indiana Jones 5 with James Mangold directing, that had been rumored for a while. It is official, and it's on the way. Harrison Ford obviously returning. He is the only Indiana Jones in the movie, so there will be no Shia LaBeouf character, from what I can gather. So lots to take in there. Disney made those huge announcements. Lots of Marvel, lots of Star Wars stuff on the way.
Retirement home.
Yeah, Indiana Jones in the retirement home. Yeah, maybe. Movies and TV shows being released. The Dig, was starring Carey Mulligan, Ralph Fiennes, Lily James, and Johnny Flynn, is in theaters on January 15th and on Netflix January 29th. Cobra Kai Season 3 premieres January 8th on Netflix. Trailer is out now. It looks fantastic.
I cannot wait.
History of Swear Words, hosted by Nicolas Cage, hits Netflix January 5th. There is a trailer. Everybody should watch it because it's Nick Cage being Nick Cage. Let's see. Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk as an ex-auditor, a.k.a. Hitman, comes out in February. It's basically his Liam Neeson. The trailer looks badass. Everybody should watch this trailer. He looks phenomenal in it. Officially, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, March 19th, so not that far away. Marvel's What If is going to be in the summer of 2021. That is the animated series where they take their characters and put them in other situations, make them other characters, make like Black Panther becoming Captain America, that kind of stuff. That looks like a fun series. The trailer's out for that now as well. Shang-Chi has been scheduled for July 9th, 2021. They've got a full poster of the cast up. It looks great. Captain Marvel 2, November 11th, 2022, will include Miss Marvel, which is a show they're working on right now, and Monica Rambeau, who will be in WandaVision in January, which is the first Disney Plus Marvel show that will air. And then Loki has been given an official date of May 2021. So right away you'll have WandaVision in January, Falcon Winter Soldier in March, and Loki in May. So, and then in the summer you'll get What If. So basically it's like every other month. It's going to be pretty great if you're a Marvel fan over the next few months. That is our show, everybody. We appreciate everybody for listening. It's always been fun every week doing this. This is episode 25. We are glad to continue doing this. You could follow us at Now Showing with Mike and Wayne on Facebook and Instagram. At Twitter, it's at now_Wayne. Email us at nowshowingwithmikeandwayne.com. You can find me on Twitter at WeAreScrewed2, on Instagram at Mike1830, and on Facebook at Michael Kirkpatrick. It's the one again with the Now Showing logo. Wayne, you can follow on Twitter at Wayne Yerke, on Instagram at Wayne_Yerke, and on Facebook at Wayne Yerke. You can find us on Entertainment Buffet on their YouTube page. Just look up Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. Quite a few of our episodes are up there now. If you want to re-listen to them, go ahead. We would greatly appreciate it, sending other people there as well. Okay, that's everything for Wayne Yerke, and I'm Michael Kirkpatrick. Thank you for listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.